Straight up, form a defensive line!
Lieutenant McKenzie, move out!
This colony is going to be destroyed, alright?
Fighting inside a colony? Let's do this!
Proceed ahead on course as planned.
We're not playing silly games here, you know.
Okay, now leave us over the fire.
Hello people of the internet, this is Kaiju Noir here with one more review as a send-off to 2015. And since I just finished talking about my most beloved fictional character of all time, I decided to take this opportunity to review something from my second favorite franchise, Mobile Suit Gundam. For over 35 years, the groundbreaking Gundam franchise has entertained children and adults alike with stunning mech battles, intense moral dilemmas, political drama, and memorable characters. Just like many kids of the 90s, I was first introduced to the franchise through Gundam Wing and G Gundam. These two shows were the first in the franchise to take place in alternate universes that were separate from the main continuity that previous Gundam shows took place in, aka the Universal Century Timeline. Since then, each new televised Gundam series would take place in its own continuity, which is a trend that still continues to this day. With the Gundam multiverse growing more and more complex, most anime enthusiasts, especially those living in the West, are sadly not aware of the Universal Century shows, which is the equivalent of being into Marvel comics and not knowing what the original 616 universe is. So that's why I decided to talk about Mobile Suit Gundam 0080, War in the Pocket, an OVA series that takes place during the events of the 1979 anime that started it all. Why this show in particular? Well, at only 6 episodes, it's an easy anime to get into for fans and newcomers alike. Plus, it takes place in December, so I can technically call this video an end-of-the-year holiday special. As stated before, this series takes place during the events of Gundam 79. For those who haven't seen the show, allow me to catch you up to speed. It is the year 0079 of the Universal Century calendar. Large portions of the human population are now living in space colonies that are controlled by a united government called the Earth Federation. A rebellious nation called the Principality of Zeon declared war on the Earth Federation. Their goal is to obtain independence from said federation. However, the Zeon higher-ups secretly planned for global domination through the use of their brand new humanoid robots called mobile suits. Eventually, the Federation developed their own experimental mobile suits, with their strongest one being the Gundam. These mobile suits fell into the hands of a ragtag group of inexperienced military personnel and regular civilians, one of them being the show's protagonist, Amuro Ray. This newfound crew took charge of the situation at hand and became key players in the one-year war against the Zeon forces. This brings us to the events of Gundam 0080, as well as my review for said anime. It is December of the year 0079, and the one-year war is winding down. The Principality of Zeon has learned of a new Federation weapon that is being developed in the North Pole. Zeon dispatches a special forces unit called the Cyclops Team to raid the base, only to find out that they are severely outnumbered, and thus couldn't prevent the weapon's launch into space. The weapon is then transported to the Federation's secret R&D base on the neutral colony Side 6, the home of our main protagonist, Alfred Izaruha. Al is your typical 11-year-old schoolboy who's obsessed with mobile suits and is friends with a Federation test pilot, Christina McKenzie. One day, Al comes across a critically damaged Zaku that barely survived a short fight in the middle of his colony. It is here where he meets Zeon soldier Bernie Weissman. Al unknowingly shares information with Bernie on the location of the Federation weapon through a video he recorded earlier in the colony's shipping facility. Bernie shares this info with Zeon and is transferred to the Cyclops team. After a series of events, Al manages to locate the Cyclops team's headquarters. In order to keep an eye on Al, Steiner, the head of the Cyclops team, makes him an honorary member and assigns him and Bernie on recon missions to search for the weapon's location. The duo eventually tracks down the base and find out that the weapon is in fact the brand new Gundam Alex. The Cyclops team then executes a plan to steal the Gundam with their prototype mobile suit, the Kämpfer, which goes horribly wrong as both the Federation soldiers and the Gundam overwhelm them, with Chris being the pilot of the new mobile suit. Things go from bad to worse when Bernie finds out that Zeon is planning on nuking the entire colony unless the Gundam gets destroyed by Christmas night. Now Al and Bernie must find a way to repair what's left of the Zaku from earlier and devise a plan that will prevent the destruction of the colony and everyone they care about. Gundam 0080 is the first series to not feature the franchise's creator Yoshiyuki Tomino as its director. As a result, the OVA has a more down-to-earth feel that sets it apart from the previous installments that primarily took place in space. It still features certain elements from the TV shows, such as space battles and political conflict, but it's used sparingly and kept in the background, as most of the narrative takes place on Side 6, with the plot largely focusing on the relationship between Al and Bernie. This makes the story feel more personal, as we are given a chance to directly see how the war takes a severe toll on the colony, and especially on its civilians. In fact, you can liken this to the situation in The Return of Godzilla, where the Prime Minister of Japan prevents America and Russia from using his country as a testing site for their nuclear weapons. Only here, the neutral colony has no choice in the matter, as both factions take advantage of the colony by using it as their battlefield. Just like the original series, this show also does not shy away from portraying the Earth Federation in a bad light, even if they are technically still the good guys. When people in charge of the colony ask for permission to use the Gundam against the Zeon forces, their request is denied, and we're told to defend themselves so that the mobile suit remains unharmed. In a way, this shows how the Federation sees the colony as a superfluous loss, much like how Zeon treats the Cyclops team. The story also works at being a standalone tale for newcomers, while also giving hints to the larger ongoings of the One-Year War. Several lines of dialogue are spoken in passing conversations concerning the public perception of the Earth Federation and Zeon, as well as the reputation of the original Gundam, its pilot Amuro, and his crew. Even the concept of new types, humans with psychic abilities, is slightly touched upon with the invention of the Gundam Alex. In terms of Gundam protagonists, Al is about as far away as you can get from the typical angsty teen pilot that you'd find in most mecha anime. In fact, he's probably one of the most relatable protagonists in the franchise, as he's meant to be the average civilian that the audience can latch onto, as the war begins to take place on Side 6. Judging by the first 2 episodes alone, Al performs poorly in school, is known for being a troublemaker, and has been known to openly disrespect both his mother and teacher. This could be the result of being raised in a broken family, and having an estranged relationship with his father ever since his parents separated. Meanwhile, he hates being told what to do, and lacks the motivation to excel in his studies. His rebellious attitude could have come from the fact that he is simply not ready to accept the responsibilities that come with growing up. He also has an understandably naive perception on the war, to the point where he has a preference towards Zeon, simply because they have cooler mobile suits. This definitely explains his willingness to help out the Cyclops team, since it justifies his yearning for breaking the rules. In a way, his life-changing experience with the Cyclops team ends up becoming a dark and twisted take on the escapist fantasy narrative. Only he's not escaping into a fantasy setting, but rather he's delving into a deadly situation where people are dying all around him. Al would only think of war as a simple game of shooting down supposed bad guys. However, the situation ends up giving him a true dose of reality and forces him to realize just how fragile and precious human lives really are. As for Bernie, he is a first-time soldier with low expectations from his superiors and an even lower sense of self-confidence. After losing his Zaku in his very first fight, he's seen as an expendable asset and was assigned to a team that specializes in being sent to the slaughterhouse. After meeting Al, he develops a brotherly bond with him over the course of the story, and even develops an attraction towards Chris, unaware of the fact that she is the Gundam's pilot. At one point, he even begins to lie about how great of a pilot he is, just as a means of making Al look up to him in high regards. Al's willingness to put his faith in him serves as the positive influence he needed to continue his mission even as the stakes were being raised. He also looks out for Al's safety and makes it his top priority to protect him when his entire colony was threatened by Zeon. Just as Al became a positive influence on him, he does the same for Al. Because Al was raised in a fatherless environment, Bernie became that surrogate older male figure in his life, and instilled in Al the importance of responsibility. This makes Bernie perhaps the most sympathetic Zeon soldier we've seen in the franchise at this point, and helps sell the idea that there are good-hearted people on both sides of the conflict, with neither party being exclusively good nor bad. Finally, there's Chris herself. Much like how Bernie is meant to show the sympathetic side of the Zeon forces, Chris serves to represent the Earth Federation's point of view. She acts like an older sister towards Al, and shows her willingness to support him during his emotional highs and lows. Chris also serves as Al's moral compass, as she helps Al understand that there is no right or wrong decision when it comes to choosing whether to fight or run away in a war. She believes that people will suffer either way, so that the decision to stay and fight ultimately depends on what the person is fighting for. She is also portrayed as being a headstrong and capable fighter, and is able to jump into the fray without a moment's hesitation, especially if it means protecting her loved ones. Her tendency to jump the gun does lead to moments where her hot temper gets the best of her, such as when she humorously attacked Bernie because she thought he was breaking into Al's house. Similar to how we see the war's effect on the colony through Al's point of view, we get a similar experience with Chris, a person who was directly involved in the fighting. After putting an end to the Zeon's operation, she and her team are scrutinized by the law enforcement for developing mobile suits on their neutral colony and attracting the Zeon there as a result. We see the guilt she carries from the knowledge that her team's actions led to the deaths of 246 individuals, plus the 572 left wounded. This really emphasizes the point that there are no real winners or losers in war, only death and suffering. Overall, Chris is a very interesting character to watch, and it's a shame that there hasn't been any further material out there that focuses solely on her. She seems like the type of character who could carry a miniseries on her own. As for the rest of the characters, there isn't anyone here worth mentioning outside of the Cyclops team themselves. They get very basic characterizations, but they work at helping the plot move forward. They also give the audience a peek into the lives of soldiers who have been battle-hardened by the numerous missions they've accomplished. Garcia, Mikhail, and Steiner have grown so accustomed to their lifestyle that it doesn't even faze them when they realize that they were fighting a losing war, nor when Steiner found out that his team was used as decoys to locate the Gundam rather than being expected to actually steal or destroy it. This is because fighting is all they have going for in life. Even when an old friend of Steiner's advises him to run away, Steiner and his team refuse to back down. In a way, their never-say-die attitude served as an example for when Bernie made the decision to carry on the mission for the sake of Al, Chris, and everyone else on the colony. While they may come across as brutish and unsympathetic, the team do their best to look out for one another, and are willing to put their lives on the line if it means allowing the teammates to continue the fight. In this OVA, the mobile suit battles are brief but certainly leave an impact on you. The way the fights are choreographed are very moment by moment, where a single mistake could lead to a very quick and unceremonious death. The battles feel real and gritty, and are exemplified by the grim aftermaths that even the shortest of battles would leave behind. Thanks to the OVA's unrestricted nature, the series depicts a level of violence and bodily harm never really shown in previous Gundam productions, and hit the nail on the head as to how brutal a war can get, which is a theme that will continue in later Gundam OVAs. In terms of mobile suits, I'd like to touch upon the one we see more than any other, that mech being Bernie's Zaku 2 Kai. A slightly upgraded version of the popular grunt unit, the Zaku 2, the Kai was developed in a limited run due to the fact that the war was already nearing its end, and because so many other mobile suits had already been developed to succeed the Zaku 2. I believe that the Zaku 2 Kai was created to simply take advantage of the OVA's larger budget, which allowed for more detailed redesigns on such an iconic mech. In the show, it performs just as well as any Zaku unit with its machine gun and axe. However, it's Bernie's determination and quick thinking that gives this particular Zaku its time to shine against overwhelming odds. The next major mobile suit to cover is the Kämpfer, a prototype mech that was made with the sole purpose of shredding through the Federation's military in order to steal the Gundam. It's subtly built up for the first couple of episodes before its grand reveal in the middle of the city. The Kämpfer was made to strike down targets with a large amount of firepower in a short amount of time. Its numerous boosters were made so that it can outmaneuver enemies and make a fast escape once its mission was complete. On the downside, it was never meant for prolonged battles, as its ammo and thrusters could never last that long. Therefore, it was only meant for missions that allowed it to get in and get out as quickly as possible. The Kämpfer has been one of my favorite Zeon mobile suits for quite a while. I love its heavily armored appearance, its heavy firepower, and its striking blue design. Plus, I did enjoy its proper reveal when it began marching towards the Federation base with people running away in terror, like a scene out of a Godzilla film. In fact, it was foreshadowed earlier when Al was playing a giant monster video game. Rather than fighting the monsters, Al participated in shooting down the buildings alongside them. Very clever, guys! Finally, we come to the Gundam Alex, its name being an acronym for Armored Layers Experimental. This mobile suit was made to be a replacement for the original Gundam, as it had difficulties keeping up with Amuro's increasing reaction time, thanks to his emerging new type abilities. To help keep up with Amuro, the Alex featured a 360-degree panoramic monitor in its cockpit, along with magnetic coating in its joints to increase its speed. On top of that, it also had hidden Gatling guns in its forearms, along with experimental armor plates that can be grafted onto the mobile suit itself. Interestingly enough, the idea of attachable armor is a concept that previously existed in the expanded universe of the original series, but was never constructed until now for the Alex. The armor is pretty neat, though it doesn't seem to withstand much damage as it collapsed after protecting the mobile suit from a series of landmines. What I'm more impressed with are the dual Gatling guns, which tore apart the Kempfer, making it nothing more than a pile of metallic Swiss cheese. I liked what the writers did with the Alex in order to have Bernie be able to go toe-to-toe with it with no more than a Zaku. Thanks to the narrative context behind the Alex, it is severely under-equipped and unprepared for combat, since it was still undergoing tests at the time. Not only that, but its pilot is not a new type, and thus couldn't use the Alex's full potential. Thankfully, this does not make the Alex look like a pushover, as it was still able to put up one hell of a fight, with only its built-in weaponry. However, if this Gundam was fully equipped, and had an experienced new type behind it, this mobile suit could have been a force to be reckoned with on the battlefield. Luckily, this is why Gundam video games and model kits exist, to both explore these possibilities, as well as to exploit the wallets of Gundam fans everywhere. Back in 1989, Gundam 0080 was made to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the franchise, as well as create an outlet for more Gundam content. Eventually, Sunrise Inc. and Bandai would start producing new Gundam shows that took place exclusively in alternate universes, so the OVA format allowed for new stories to be told within the Universal Century, a previously established continuity that was already rich with new possibilities. For the franchise's first exploration into the direct-to-video market, we got ourselves a unique coming-of-age tale about a boy whose innocence was shattered as he learned about the harsh realities of the world he lived in. Gundam 0080 is an engaging side story that provides likable and relatable characters, emotional turmoil, and a climax that will hit you like an emotional bag of bricks. I'm giving Gundam 0080 a 5 out of 5. Even if you aren't into Gundam, or are perhaps interested in getting into the franchise, I highly recommend this anime, and while you're at it, I suggest checking out the original 1979 series to see where this entire saga began. At the time of this recording, Gundam 0080 is not yet available on either DVD or Blu-ray, as the original Bandai Entertainment DVDs have been long since out of print and are ridiculously expensive online. Luckily, you are able to access all 6 episodes right here on YouTube. Well, with 2015 out of the way, it's time to look towards the future. There's still some wrapping up to do with the Heisei era of Toho films, so join me next time when I review Rebirth of Mothra. Until next time, everybody, take care and Happy New Year's!
誰がエリアスの盾を剥がしたのかしら。封印が解けてる。人間ね、きっと。なんだのあんたたちは。デスキドラ6500万年前に太陽系にやってきた宇宙生物です。これがデスギドラ。行くよ、誰かに。モスラの命はあと少ししかないのよ。ロラ、協力して。モスラ
美しき星の守り神モスラ。すべての生命の敵デスギドラ。そして生命の神秘新モスラの誕生。モスラ12月14日新たなる伝説が飛び立つ。前売り券を買うと特製クリアファイルプレゼント。